What's up guys, and welcome back to my channel. For today's video, I will share some of the things that I wish I knew a lot earlier when I first played Tree of Savior Neverland. I've been playing this game for quite some time now, and I am really enjoying my time so far. So I'm here to share some of the things that I find really helpful when it comes to progressing my character. Note that I'm not really an expert in this game, as this is my very first time playing a Tree of Savior IP. However, I just want to share some of the things that I've learned and noticed from my time with the game. So without further ado, let's go ahead and start with my list. The first one on my list is to not focus too much on your score or power levels. Now this might sound weird, especially in this game because the score or your power levels are basically the barometer for your character's progression. However, if you're an F2P like me, increasing your score or power levels is something that we cannot really do in an instant. We have to take a systematic and smart approach on how we build our character from the ground up. At the same time, thinking too much about your score or power levels only adds more pressure to you as a player. Instead, I would rather focus more on how I build my character in the game. What do I mean by that? The score or power level is an accumulation of a lot of things, from your equipment, catpal, card stats, and so on. So basically, there are a lot of factors that goes into increasing your scores or power levels. Instead of thinking about those things, focus more on the stats for your equipment, catpals, and cards. Think about which equipment stats, catpals, or cards you should be using in the game. Do the things that I've mentioned have stats that can enhance my class to its full potential? Or am I using the wrong stats for my build? The reason why I say this is because I've noticed that there are times whenever I do dungeons, even though I have the lowest score in our party, I usually end up being the highest damage dealer in the run. Now of course, I'm not going to compare my damage to support or tank classes, because they have a different role in the party. But there are times when there are multiple DPS classes in my party and they have way higher scores than me, and I still end up with the highest damage output from the group. And this was even brought up to me by one of my friends, who is also playing the same class as me in the game. And his score or power levels are 60k or 70k higher than mine, and yet I do more damage than him. So when I check his character on Discord, I saw that his stats are not properly optimized for his build, which leads to my second point in this list, which is understanding your character's main and secondary stats. I'm going to use the Shadow Hunter, a DPS class, as an example, as this is what I'm currently playing in the game. So for this class, my main stat is Strength, which basically means that I need to increase this stat to further improve my character's damage output. But what about my secondary stats? This is very important because this will add more damage output for your character moving forward. So first, how do I identify my character's secondary stats? This is very simple, to be honest, and I feel like a lot of players don't do this that much for whatever reason. And that is just to read your skills and learn your character's skill tree. From there, you can immediately identify the stats that you need in order to enhance your character's damage output, which is necessary if you are a DPS. Just click on the nodes with sword icons into it. You can already identify the stats needed for the Shadow Hunter class, which are Strength and Accuracy, and some crit and haste on the side. Another example is when you read a skill. Let's take the Eye of Eagle. As you can see right there, the accuracy stat is a part of the skill's output computation. From those things alone, I think it is pretty obvious that these are the stats that you need to have in your equipment, catpals, cards, and so on. And the reason why I am saying this is because when I checked my friend's character, I saw that he was so fixated or focused on the scores that he wasn't really using the stats that he needs for his character. From the stats of his catpals to the stats in his cards, it was all over the place. He thought that having a high score will automatically translate into a higher damage output. So again, to my point, it is important to understand the class that you are playing in order to maximize its full potential. Moving on to the third item on my list, which is the proper use of cat pulse. This is actually correlated to my first 2 points earlier, because your cat pulse also have stats that are the same with your character, and these stats will also be carried over to your character's actual stats. So you need to ensure that the cat pulse that you are using are prioritizing the same stats for your class. Again, this is very simple and straightforward. Whenever you check your cat pulse, you can see that each cat favors a specific stat. There are some cats that favors mind and wisdom, some favor strength and agility. From there, if you are a shadow hunter, it is pretty obvious and you can already tell which cats your class should be using. Another thing that the player should prioritize is the chain mechanics for your cats, making sure that the cats that you are using are linked, which will lead to additional bonus effects. So it is important that you find the right mix for your cats in combat. Another side note to this topic is the use of the cat pal preset. If you are using different cats for PvE or PvP, using the preset will make your life a lot easier. It's a good quality of life mechanic in the game, which allows you to change your lineup instantly. Moving on to the fourth item, which is the proper use of cards. Again, this is correlated to my first few items on my list, because cards adds additional stats to your character. So using the right set of cards will surely improve your character's power. You don't want to use cards that gives out stats that your character doesn't need. What you need to use are cards that will further enhance your main and secondary stats. You also need to take note of the set effects for cards, because this will unlock additional bonuses for your character's growth. Moving on to the fifth item on our list, which is understanding the equipment inheritance mechanic. As you probably know by now, you can transfer stats of equipment that you get going to your main equipment. This is a very good quality of life and convenient mechanic in the game. Now, if you've understood the points that I am making earlier, then you already know that you don't necessarily need to inherit stats from items that you get just for the sake of doing it. Just because you see the upward arrow or icon which signifies that if you inherit this stat, it will increase your score, it doesn't mean that you have to do it. The question that you need to answer is that, is it really better than the stat that I am currently using right now? Or will this stat really help the build that I am making? If not, then this might do more harm to your build. So again, be mindful when using the stat inheritance mechanic. The next one on our list is quite different from the first few items. And this is something that I will encourage a lot of players to do, especially in the early stages of the game. And that is to join an active guild or order in the game. Order is the term used in this game instead of a guild. But anyway, I'll just use the term guild since that is the most common term in most MMORPGs. I can't stress this out enough, but joining a guild has a lot of benefits when it comes to your character's growth. This is an essential part of the game, which is why this game is a part of the MMORPG genre. Meaning, this is a massive multiplayer type of a game. The main benefits that you get when joining a guild is that you can ask assistance from other players in doing missions or clearing dungeons. In addition to that, whenever you do a guild mission, you get a lot of progression materials as a reward, which really helps in your character's growth moving forward. I also like the guild furnace feature, because you can forge weapons and armors for yourself. You can also ask assistance from your guildmates to increase the equipment rarity drop rate when forging items from this guild furnace. So again, when you start playing this game, it is a necessity to find an active guild or order in your server. On to the seventh item on our list, which are the daily missions and events in this game. Now, I'm not going to talk about this topic that much because again, this is very straightforward and common with this type of games. The one thing that I just want to note is that there are a lot of missions and events that you can do in this game, where you can get a lot of useful progression rewards. Even the cat paw tickets used for the gacha machine are so easy to get. And what's good about these missions is that it doesn't really take a lot of time when completing each mission. It's easy, short, and straightforward, so it won't really take up much of your time. I'm just an F2P, and I've been doing gacha draws every single day. So just be active and do the missions in the game, and you will be rewarded nicely. On to the 8th item on my list, which is very connected to my previous item. And this is to utilize the to-do list window in the game. I find this so useful, to be honest, and I don't really see a lot of this type of quality of life in other games. This is so helpful for me because I'm not really the type of player that can do all these missions in one go. Sometimes when I have some free time from my work, I can do some of the missions in the game, which is why this to-do list is so useful because I can keep track of the missions that I've completed for the day. As a side note to this topic, I highly recommend that you guys always do the UgPhone train mission every day because the rewards for this mission are additional stats for your character. At the same time, the requirements are so easy as you just need to craft items to complete the quest. And last but certainly not the least is to progress your home or farm in the game. Initially, I thought that this feature was just a minigame with no connections to other activities. However, as my life skill level grew higher, the items that I want to craft as an alchemy requires items from my farm. So ensuring that your farm is also being progressed is a must, because this is where you get some of the crafting materials in the game. And that's it for today's video. This list is more of a beginner's guide for players who have no experience in the game, as well as for players who are just starting off. If you have more tips that you want to share, write it down in the comment section below. If you enjoyed the video, don't forget to leave a like, and if you want to see more TOS content, don't forget to subscribe to the channel. GG!
You're a superhero.